Hi everyone, Jaini Jailene here with another of the Celestial Travels vlogs. And today I'm going to talk about a few different things. I'm going to start off with the foldings and how that's been going. So far, if you guys have been following the forums, I've been posting progress. I finished the directives and adaptives folding, so that was the first full folding that I completed, and I put a post on it about about the experience with that folding. And now actually I've been working on the receivers and the discerners with the Demas. We're tag teaming on that, doing joint work on it. And so far with that one, the perceivers and discerners, it's really cool because again, you know, you have a different slicing. In this case, you have all the unifield on one collage. I mean, like all the bifield on one collage, and which would be the perceivers, and then all the unifield on another collage, which would be the discerners. And that really jumps out. Of course, that's like the first thing when you're looking at these collages. So when you go through the discerners, we went through the discerners first, because you always want to start with the social alchemy folding that you are a part of. So me being a Jaini, I'm a discerner, and so that's where we started. And Demas was also a discerner. So one of the things that with the discerners, the unifield face definitely jumped out right away. They seemed there was a palpable relatability between the different samples for discerner. Like it jumped out that they were almost like a familial relatability across the different culture, regardless of the culture of the discerner, physiological traits. There was that discerner, just the fact that you're a discerner first, definitely makes a cousin bond or some sort of closer bond for discerners. And then you could see, then you would see the finer shadings of like the G alpha and the Z alpha for discerners, because that's what, like, either they'll be Jez or they'll be Zes first. And not that they were setting boundaries, because some were adaptives, some were directives, but they definitely had a more, because then when I moved to the perceivers, that right away jumped out as like more open-minded, like meaning like more approaching things with a blank canvas kind of mentality, and that came across, as opposed to like the discerners. You could tell like in their countenance and their energy and the signals that they're sending
face
out
first.
that they
Face first over eyes first.
Yeah, face first over eyes first, exactly. So it's
Face first does give it more of like a,
like I'm already, I've made up my mind
that way. In this folding, it is the yang.
Yeah, in this folding, it's the yang. That's right.
Even the adaptives.
Yeah, so that definitely comes through, because it seems the perceivers are more that yin energy of like comes through, of more of like the eyes of either drinking in information or taking in information, from their internal processor. And yeah, so face first for discerners versus eyes first for the perceivers. And then also the perceivers, because of that eyes first, like they seemed less tangible, like more cagey. So I guess approachability would be...
Their positions are fluid.
Yeah, their positions are fluid. Yeah.
That includes in literals too.
Yeah.
There was more liquidy. Eyes are more liquidy than face.
Mm-hmm.
And their eyes go out.
Yeah, exactly. So very interesting, very interesting. So we're done with the discerners. Like I said, working on the perceivers, more than halfway through that. Then on my own, I'll be moving on to the objectives and subjectives, and then we'll have another folding between me and Demas. We'll decide what that is. But it's all very exciting, because all these foldings give you different perspectives of the 10K, and it helps me. This one, for example, the perceivers and discerners helped me really get those distinctions between the let's see, perceivers, discerners. Yeah, like for example, like a Ginai and an IG, or a Zenai and an IZ. You know, like ones that are closely related, but one's a perceiver, one's a discerner, and some of them sometimes like it can be a little more, say like wobbly in your mind, not as flushed out in your virtual village. But when you go through this, it definitely allowed me to do those fine shadings. You know, like if there was some sort of sample, if there was some sample that I was still wobbly on, you know, like whether it was like a Ginai or an IG, this really helped me.
Yeah, because they're not in the same collage, I guess, because they're
right.
Certain, but see it surrounded by other perceivers or other discerners, whichever one it is will be the correct.
Yeah, shows like how it fits in with that, energy. Reaffirms that energy. Yeah, and it helps.
So maybe even take with wobble.
Yeah, and it takes away the wobble. Yep. Yep. So, great stuff. Love these foldings. Then, something that I will just came across or came up, and it's something that's actually, you know, those things how they ask the question, like if you knew now what you knew 20 years ago, what would you tell yourself at that age? Those kinds of questions. Well, one of the things that I would definitely tell my younger self or any other Jaini, you know, who was younger, or tell them right away is when not to settle into a position right away. And with, you know, and that can be any mojo with when you talk about like their Jai or Zai. For Jaini, since they have Jai as their first thing, their tower, that would be even more, you know, of an important lesson, because that's their main tool, is that those compass positions. But when there can be a temptation and an uncomfortability that comes with being settled in a certain position. But that position may not be fully informed with all of the information, but you can be tempted to settle in that position before you have all the information, because again, it's more comfortable to be at equilibrium rather than still being in flux with your, in this case, with your knee, if you're Jaini. Until you gather the information necessary to make some sort of real informed judgment on a certain position, on a personal values position in this case. So it's important when you're learning to really canvas the information first, to really just drink in the information and not to try to, you know, like come in with formed judgments, like I already know things, this is how things are, because you, again, you know, you may not be seeing the whole context, and because of that, you know, you can be in off positions and you don't even realize it. What's that?
The modern mentor, you're cut off from it. Sometimes Jai does that to protect itself, but it's actually protect itself. It needs to give it its full momentum. So you're not feeding the basic thing if you don't.
Yeah, if you don't
scared
do
of it
that.
sometimes.
Sometimes it can be.
What is that causing?
Yeah, there can be a fear of leaving things, you know, like is still working on things or getting more information, drinking it in, not because it's less comfortable to be. It's an uneasy feeling. You know, you sort of have to be still open to things about that, so you haven't
Right.
you know, you can't just check that position off and move on to something else. So that's one thing
I'm curious.
that would create uneasiness, fear.
Is, as a Jaini, you'd want to not have Ni be like the primary, it is supposed to take secondary position. Does like telling the Jai it's going to be fed by reaching out the Ni, does that help? When did you learn that lesson, or how does that?
Well,
telling your Jai like this will be good for us, and have the Jai believe that.
yeah. Well, you were very helpful. I think any mentor that you have that, knows what's going on. Yeah. And because, for example, like because you can have people who even have the same powers as you do and are older than you, like family members and stuff. But if they don't really know how their process works, they can't really teach. It's sort of like the teacher can only teach up to how much they know already. So if they don't know, then the lessons won't be fully realized. They won't be able to transmit it properly.
You have to go elsewhere to get.
Yeah.
Find it.
Yeah, because you have to go somewhere else. And in my case, I had you, which is really awesome because you know what's going on, and so able to, eons beyond anyone else. But the fact that I was able to learn what powers I had from you made that the Ni, because also the Ni can be seen or felt as like something like foolish, like I'm going all, like I feel scattered, I feel like all over the place. What does it mean? Maybe I'm wasting my time. If I just
also feel too open,
vulnerable. Yeah, like you're vulnerable. Like if I don't make a decision on let's say I'm out and about and I haven't settled into a position on something and I'm still canvassing and scanning the environment, then that may leave me more vulnerable because, I may make, I may make a call that's, that I don't have a position on, and it may leave me exposed to, something that would conflict with my values and would, make my Jai feel like tainted or something like that.
I see, because wasn't ready.
It wasn't ready for that interaction. Yeah.
I'm curious on that, because I think you may have mentioned stuff about the samples over the time you've been working on them, seeing Ni being used. Kind of going with this, you talk about your mom. You talk about your family
members. Yeah.
Is
my mom being one that she's a Jai Ni, so.
But there are others too. Yeah.
Yeah, but there are others.
But is saying that they were not enacting certain ways the power is used for you, your mojo, in a way like, ooh, that's a really cool thing, particularly Ni. Then maybe seeing samples in the virtual village. It gives you something just like
it gives me a context.
It's hard to talk about certain things, particularly right brain functions and right brain functions that are high up in the SS index.
Yeah,
sometimes just seeing it done is going to be way better than
talking about it because it's like it is like an open-ended sort of process, and right adaptive ones don't have beginning, middle, end. So it's watching samples is really invaluable because you get to see that those free-form powers used in a peak pathway sort of way, because you can use it for those momentum powers for a lot of different applications in life paths. That can be, from can get really specialized, or it can get and can be in many different areas. But seeing it enacted gives you, and seeing it enacted across contexts gives you the universality of what those powers are and how they peak, and that can then give your own psyche a lot of abstractions and cross contextualizations of how you could use it in your own context, the powers in your own life. So for the things that you want to get accomplished, or if you don't know, then just using them in ways that are peaking and productive until you figure out what it is that you want to be doing as a life's journey. So yeah.
On that more is that because one is like the knowledge. I know one thing that's there for me with my G code of conduct, but I imagine having Jai first, this can be way more pronounced. Sometimes I see a mojo of mine doing something like, ooh, like, nah, like, I could do that, like, it's possible. But there's actually a G, too, of, like, I respect that Na G, and they did that move. There's also, like, do I feel like doing something like that, like, because you said being tainted. That got me thinking, like, one thing that also helps is actually seeing sometimes, not just simple doing it, but doing it well and by someone I think well of.
Yeah.
Because like with Jaini, you're saying like being like the knee, like are you being too exposed? Are you being too encouraging of maybe unsolicited
things that would bother your Jai.
But like maybe seeing a Jaini that you think well of doing that and they don't seem tainted and it worked out well, you're like, well, at least that's okay to sometimes.
Yeah. It can free your, like inhibitions, like that are if they're improper, or maybe like you're not.
Because my G has inhibitions, and sometimes it helps free if I see a
free it,
doing it. Okay.
Yeah, like for example,
like basically a hero did that, right? So you try to emulate.
Yeah, once I knew what my mojo was of Jaini, and I saw other Jainis out there that are performers, for example, that like really freed up in my psyche the fact that okay, I have those powers. I could be a performer, if I went into that craft, and I would use those powers in that certain way. But also then it has a certain, then it frees me up to like, making stuff up. If I like now I wouldn't feel embarrassed to like sing at a party in front of my friends or something, like doing a performing ritual wouldn't make my Jai like feel so cringy of like.
They're kind of like a support group in a way.
Yeah, it's like a support group.
Yeah, that's how my G feels like. They feel like they support me.
Yeah. Tell me, like provide me proper feedback, clues to paths that I could take, like insight into that. Yeah.
So having that can like bring it in when it's not there.
It's not there. You have, like you said, then you have, because you recognize your connection to them and you recognize yourself in them, and you have the same powers. So that's like the best support group ever, even if you never ever meet them. But it's so. But if
you have several, like, say, Jaini
helpful
that you think well of doing a certain move with certain powers, okay, that clearly is a way to do that well.
Yeah.
And heroes of my mojo do that. That's a great feeling.
Yeah, that's really empowering of, like, I can do this too, because a lot of times you can think, well, am I really meant to do that? Do I really have what it takes to do something like that? How would you do it? What does it look like?
But you see, like, I'm doing it like they do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm doing it.
Exactly. Which is really awesome.
That's great.
I have a couple of the things, but I think I'll leave those for a next vlog, for a continuation of topics. Have all these little insights that other people, like either. Others have said that it stick in your mind, just different nuggets. So I'll be bringing those out in the different vlogs. You're welcome. So I will see you guys next time, and hope all is well. Bye.